Hello, I want to talk about the dsm-5 today because of the fact that they removed Asperger Syndrome as a diagnosis from it. I want to make a video explaining why and what that means, and also my opinions on that. First of all, I hear some of you ask, what is the dsm-5? And it is the thing that comes after dsm-4. So now that that's cleared out, no. The DSM is they call it the psychological Bible, the psychologist Bible. Like it's a handbook that basically describes all of the mental disorders that we know of. It's basically like the book to go to if you want to learn about autism, for example. Therefore, all psychologists, use this book as a reference frame when they diagnose someone with autism or Asperger's, as it were. And when they change something in the book, when they release a new version of it, of course that's going to affect what psychologists in the future see, because, the reference is changed. So they updated the DSM-4 until released it as the DSM-5, and they removed the diagnosis Asperger Syndrome, and they basically clumped it together with autism. They also removed autism as a diagnosis, like just plain autism, and put it together with autism spectrum disorder, basically meaning that if you have Asperger's or if you're full-on autistic, you have the same definition of problem. It's just that it's a spectrum, and you're here and they're there. The reason why they did that is simply because they wanted to, it can be debated, I guess, but they wanted to keep down the amount of people who get the autism diagnosis simply from being, introvert or weird, or because they felt like it. There's been a lot of people who have been like, oh, I have Asperger's because I have a special interest, or like I have Asperger's because I don't like people. And Asperger's has been such a wide definition that it's basically been everyone. Like anyone can go under it if you look hard enough, because everyone's a little bit introvert and so on. So what they did was they removed the smaller cases, and they said that only if you have these certain exact specific symptoms, you will be classified as autistic or autism spectrum disorder, meaning that there's going to be a lot less people who can just walk around saying I have Asperger's. A lot of people obviously have been upset about this for several reasons, one of which is the fact that they get money from the government, or they get like special help in school, or they have a way of classifying themselves which makes them feel more secure, which is kind of why I make these videos, to help people like that. When you remove the Asperger's diagnosis, it obviously it's like if I keep using the analogy of a broken arm or something. If you have a broken leg, and then all of a sudden the doctors say there's no such thing as a broken leg, there's only severe limb loss. And you're like, but I don't fit under that. And they're like, well, then you don't have severe limb loss, so too bad for you. That, however, doesn't mean that they won't treat you for it, so to speak, and that you won't be able to tell people that you have a broken leg. They changed the name of the diagnosis and the severity of the diagnosis, but if you ask me, that doesn't affect anyone with the actual diagnosis. However, hour later, because camera ran out of battery, I don't remember what I was talking about, but they put some qualifications on what the autism diagnosis would be, and I'm gonna give you the information because you might want to know what it actually takes to have Asperger's. These are qualifications that technically already were necessary to have Asperger's, but now they're a bit more strict. First of all, you need to have problems with, well, expressing yourself. You need to have problems with your facial expressions, your body language, your language. You need to have difficulty holding a conversation, and you need to have a lack of expression. There was already a diagnosis of Asperger's that the fact, like dead faced, you don't look people in the eye, those things. But you need to have it in an extent of it need to actually affect how well you can have a relationship with someone, as a friend or as a girlfriend or boyfriend. You can't say that you are bad with people and then say that you have Asperger's because of it. That's something that's a point I kind of wanted to get across for a while. Along with, you can't say that you don't like people and therefore you have Asperger's and so on. There's a lot of people in the comment sections and sending me mails who obviously want to have Asperger's and therefore kind of try to push themselves into the definition of it. Not saying that they don't have Asperger's, I'm just saying that the thing they say has nothing to do with Asperger's. My girlfriend, I was talking about a character in a movie or show, and I was like, oh, he obviously has Asperger's, and her reaction was like, then I have it too, because I'm also introvert and blah 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 blah. Point is that she doesn't have Asperger's, and I can tell. But if you go by the very loose definitions of like bad at body language, then you could technically say that she has it. But that's the thing. You don't go by the loose definition, you go by a strict definition. And that was true back in the day, and it's true now as well. So you need to actually have problems with actually talking to people. Like, they basically need to go what the fuck, whatever you say in the thing. You also need to have repetitive behavior, such as, rocking back and forth and such things. You also need to have very strict routines, or rather want very strict routines. Just like normal, the definition or symptom rather of Asperger's is put in such a way that they say that you have to have routines, but you could technically have Asperger's and not have routines as long as you want routines. Also, obviously, everyone's different. But you need to be, how should I put it, in a strict mindset. Have special interests that you get way too into compared to what other people might. And you need to be overly sensitive. Hearing, seeing stuff, too many lights on your face, all the good stuff. Just like before, those were the definitions of Asperger's. These are now more definitions of the autism spectrum disorder. Because those are, as well as being symptoms for Asperger's, there are symptoms for having just straight up autism and, not being able to communicate with the outside world properly. Which is kind of what the spectrum involves. It's a problem with communication or an expression. You also need to have these problems from childhood, and you need to have them in such a way that they affect your day-to-day living. And if you don't fulfill all of those criteria, you technically don't have Asperger's or autism anymore. If you asked me like a couple of months ago, before they did the DSM thing, you could get away with a lot more because a psychologist would look at you and be like, that sounds pretty Aspie, and he would give you a diagnosis. Or you could just be like, oh, I feel this way, therefore I have Asperger's. You can't do that anymore. So, here's my opinion on what that means. At first when I heard that they're going to remove Asperger's, I got actually kind of upset because in my head, Asperger's is a specific thing, whilst autism is a specific other thing. I correlated the two, but they're so different that I didn't want to put them in the same diagnosis. However, when you read the definitions of what it means to have autism, it actually has basically the same definitions as having Asperger's, just stronger and worse. Like, it actually affects their lives. I've always looked at Asperger's as being like a personality trait. Like, you just have a certain type of personality, and it's called Asperger's, which was fine and dandy, but at the same time it's difficult to say that when it's just a personality trait, because everyone has personality traits, and some people fall under categories of, very specific personality traits. Doesn't mean you have to put them in the same lump as someone with a more serious mental condition. So, it's difficult for me to say that it's a bad thing. I actually feel like it's kind of a good thing that they did what they did, because, to be honest with you, there's a lot of people kind of non-Aspie wannabe Aspies. And I know this because I get a lot of comments. I'm not saying that all of my comments are fake Aspies, but I've even been accused of being a fake Aspie, because they're like, oh, you don't look like you have Asperger's. So, here's the thing. By the new definition of autistic spectrum disorder, I don't think I have it anymore. I have very clear, in my head, Asperger's will always be a thing, even if there's no definition in the dsm-v, but I don't think if I went to a psychologist today, I would get the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Yes, I have problem looking people in the eye. I can't even look at the camera for very long. I have trouble expressing myself. My hand movements don't make much sense a lot of the time. I do have problems expressing my face. I have problems keeping conversations with regular people, having friends and so on. I like to keep to myself. I have very strict routines that I love. I have special interests that other people will just find boring, and I rant about them sometimes without noticing that people find them boring. However, if the criteria for having this also includes it needs to affect your day-to-day life, as in negatively affected, like it needs to be a problem in your life. You need help for it, basically. I'm not sure if that counts as me having it, because I survive without help. I got a diagnosis years ago of Asperger's, and since then I have, in times of need, applied for money from the government. And in Sweden, if you have a psychological disorder, it counts as impairing your whatever. You get money from the government for it, basically, which is like, oh great, free money. So I was like, I need to survive, so I'll take it. I always felt bad about it though. And now listening to more definitions of it, I just feel like I'm not really part of that group. Do you know what I mean? This is difficult to talk about, but I think I have Asperger Syndrome. I don't think I have autism spectrum disorder. And they're not the same anymore, which is the point of this video. They're split apart. Asperger Syndrome doesn't exist anymore, and they're saying it's in this other category, but Asperger Syndrome has kind of gotten split into light, which doesn't exist, and strong, which is autism. And I don't think I have the strong kind, obviously, because I don't. I have a light version of Asperger's. So, what do you think about that? Do you, as an Aspie, I'm gonna assume you are. Do you mind me making videos about Asperger Syndrome if I don't have what qualifies as the definition of Asperger Syndrome anymore? Because I can understand Aspies, I can relate to them, and Aspies can relate to me. I get comments all the time saying how my stories make them feel better about themselves. It makes me feel good making these videos. But is it fair and right for me to make them? I mean, in the long run, I guess, as long as I'm helping people, I don't know. So yeah, I kind of want your comments on this. Because it's been on my mind. So yeah, I'm done. Next video I make, I have no idea what it's gonna be about, but make some comments about, your opinions about me, and do you think I have Asperger's? Do you think I have the autism spectrum disorder? Does it matter for these videos' purposes? Also give me a thumb up because it helps my videos get seen and stuff. So, bye.